Hello? Hey! Hey! Hello, Chicago! All right!
As of 2025, Ween has officially released 7 live albums, with material spanning various lineup changes over 13 years of the band's history. These albums serve as a chronicling of the band and the place where they really come alive, on stage. And in this drought of Ween material, one of the more likely candidates for a new Ween release, beyond a 30th anniversary version of The Mollusk, is a live album pulling from the hundreds of performances Ween put on after their final officially recorded gig in late 2003. So today, let's explore Ween's live discography, starting with
We're Ween, it's 1991, we are here to play you music.
Paintin' the Town Brown, Ween's first official live album, stands at a whopping 2 hours and 7 minutes long, being Ween's first double album since the British LP of Pure Guava. Despite wanting to release it on Choco Dog to give the new label a running start, the band was still technically under contract with Elektra, who released it on June 22nd, 1999. Paintin' the Town Brown features performances from the band, purportedly spanning 7 years, we'll get to that later, and featuring material from various tours of varying recording quality. 3 songs were sourced from a show with the Creek Boys at the Santa Monica Civic Auditorium on October 11th, 1996, those being Japanese Cowboy, Mr. Richard Smoker, and I Saw Gina Crying in His Sleep. 2 songs are from Oslo, Norway, namely I Can't Put My Finger on It and Mr. Would You Please Help My Pony, and are labeled as being recorded on 1297 in the liner notes. But I think they actually might be from November 11th, 97 at the Rockefeller Music Hall, not in December. Voodoo Lady and Awesome Sound were sourced from a show in Amsterdam, Netherlands, which again I think was actually from November 15th at Melkweg, despite being labeled as 1297. The rest of the tracks were individually pulled from 12 other shows. Despite being labeled Ween Live 90 to 98, the earliest recording was actually Mushroom Festival from 1991 in Holland, with the latest being the aforementioned show in Amsterdam in November 1997. So it should more accurately be labeled 91 to 97, but you know, Elektra. It's kinda cool that this era of live Ween began and ended in the Netherlands, which was one of the first European countries to really take to Ween. I guess the Dutch just have very Ween sensibilities. While the first disc of the album consists of 16 tracks, the second disc contains just 3 songs, which seems disappointing until you realize the first 2 are a 26-minute long Poop Ship Destroyer and a 31-minute long Vallejo, followed by Puffy Cloud, making this disc possibly the brownest thing Ween has ever released. Not only does Paintin' the Town Brown contain a multitude of fan favorites, featuring the only official live recordings of Can't Put My Finger on It, She F***s Me, I Saw Gina Crying, and Ween's cover of folk standard Mountain Dew on streaming, it's currently the only way to hear Vallejo, period, despite the studio version being the B-side to Voodoo Lady. Overall, Paintin' the Town Brown, despite being Ween's first official attempt at a live album, is still the favorite for many, particularly fans of the band's Brown era. And while I am sad that it was taken from Choco Dog by Elektra, I do think the extra exposure from being released by a major label is a major reason why this album is still so accessible to collectors.
A lot of shoe stores, I notice. That's good. A lot of shoe stores at the East Center. Thank you.
Next is Live in Toronto, Canada, which was released on November 15th, 2001. Unlike Paintin' the Town, Toronto is comprised of recordings from just one night at the Phoenix Theatre on October 23rd, 1996, during the Creek Boys tour. That said, the album is still a compilation of sorts, as despite there being 16 tracks on the album, the show itself was actually 31 songs long. The reason it was cut down was partially due to Ween playing several covers, including Chariots of Fire after Japanese Cowboy, mocking Vangelis for suing Ween for plagiarism, and Georgia on My Mind, primarily drawing stylistically from the Willie Nelson version. However, Ween actually put their cover of Piano Man on the album, leading me to believe that the primary reason the album was cut down was for financial reasons, as Toronto was their first release on new label Choco Dog, and double albums are more expensive to produce and ship. The album features 6 songs from 12 Golden Country greats, and 10 rearranged versions of tracks from other albums, including one from The Mollusk, which had yet to be released at the time of recording. As previously stated, the tour this album was sourced from saw Ween backed by the Creek Boys, led by Bobby Ogden, who had been one of the session musicians on 12 Golden Country greats. The cover of Live in Toronto was adapted from the 1964 album It Might As Well Be Swing by Frank Sinatra and Count Basie, akin to the way Ween produced the album art for the pod in Quebec. Beginning with the tight version of Pretty Girl and ending with the colossal 14.5-minute version of Fluffy, Live in Toronto is another great inclusion in the Ween catalog, and one I find myself revisiting time and time again.
You know, I have a book on swallows and bats.
Yeah, I read that. That was beautiful.
Yeah.
Live at Stubb's was released January 12, 2003 by Choco Dog, featuring performances from Stubb's Barbecue in Austin, Texas. The album was recorded over 2 nights on July 7th and 8th, 2000. The 2 nights had different set lists, with some overlap. Generally, if a song was repeated, they used the take from July 7th. I guess the band was tighter on night 1. The track list includes many fan favorites, including the only official way to hear Put the Coke on My Dick and Boost Me Up and Get Me High, as well as the band's cover of Van Halen's Hot for Teacher. Live at Stubb's was technically a triple album, with the 3rd disc containing a 37-minute version of LMLYP, along with video of the performance. At an astonishing 2 hours and 41 minutes over 31 tracks, Stubb's is a monumental achievement, a true testament to the bombastic nature of Ween's live performances. And as a personal aside, Stubb's contains my favorite versions of Spinal Meningitis and Big Jim of all time.
Okay, so now continuing on with Stallion Triggerly. Here we go. This is the Stallion Part 3, live on the Infranet.
Later that year, 11 months after Stubb's and 4 months after Quebec, Ween released All Request Live on Choco Dog Records. The album consists of a set performed at Greg Frey's studio on July 22, 2003, which was live-streamed on WeenRadio.com. The setlist was voted for by superfans, and as such, features a much more niche setlist than other Ween live albums. In lieu of Buckingham Green and Transdermal Celebration, we instead get Australian Sky Cruiser B-side Cover It With Gas and Set It On Fire, and rejected Pizza Hut jingle Where'd the Cheese Go? Overall, the album features 6 songs from The Pod, 2 songs from Pure Guava, 2 songs from the recently released Quebec, 1 from The Mollusk, 1 from White Pepper, and 4 non-album tracks. There are 0 songs from Chocolate and Cheese on this thing, which is crazy because those usually make up anywhere from 20 to 30% of their set list. The performance was streamed audio only, but a video of this version of The Stallion Part 3, filmed by Pat Frey, was included on the disc. Which brings us to the album's crowning achievement, an epic performance of all 5 parts of the Stallion pentalogy, including the previously little-known Chocolate and Cheese outtake, The Stallion Part 4, and Craters of the Sack track, The Stallion Part 5. All in all Request might just be the most Ween album of all time. I called Disc 3 of Paintin the Town Brown the brownest thing the band had ever released, but I think All Request holds the title of the brownest standalone release. And to think, it was broadcast for free over the miracle of the Infernet.
This is a blues. We know this is Chicago, so we know you like the blues.
Live in Chicago was released May 4th, 2004, and holds the distinction of being Ween's best-known live album by a large margin. The album was recorded on the nights of November 8th and 9th, 2003, at the legendary Vic Theater in Chicago, and was released with both a DVD and a CD. The CD of Live in Chicago is 17 tracks long, while the DVD includes 26 songs from the 2 nights, including a cover of Led Zeppelin's All My Love. Though the 2 discs contain many of the same performances, the sequencing is way different, with the DVD being closer to the actual sequence in which the songs were played live. While there's plenty of footage of Ween performing, Live in Chicago is easily the biggest budget affair of their entire career, being HD multicam with professional mixing and mastering, at a very exciting point during the band's career, just months after the release of Quebec. As an aside, Live in Chicago won the poll on my channel for favorite live album by a landslide, winning out over Live at Stubb's in the finals with 70% of the vote. And it's easy to see why. Live in Chicago is a great introduction for new fans to the epic nature of Ween's live shows. It's a perfect mix of newer, more accessible tracks from Quebec and White Pepper, with older, browner tracks like the HIV song and Touch My Tutor, all ending with the rousing version of the Blarney Stone that's sure to bring anyone with ears under the spell of Ween.
We've been on tour for 9.5 months now.
We must have been really good last time we were here. Half the amount of people are here today.
It would be over 4 years until Ween's next live album, which would finally come in the form of At the Cat's Cradle 1992. Once again, released with both a CD and a DVD, the CD of At the Cat's Cradle features a single performance at Cat's Cradle in Carborough, North Carolina, during the Pure Guava tour. Unlike Toronto, however, Cat's Cradle features the entire setlist from the night, spanning 77 minutes of Brown-era goodness. The set includes favorites from GodWeenSatan, The Pod, and the recently released Pure Guava, as well as an ancient version of Buckingham Green, nearly 5 years before its release on the Mollusk. The DVD contains footage from 3 performances, all from the Pod tour. October 31st, 1991 in Groningen, Netherlands, January 10th, 1992 at WTSR Radio in Trenton, New Jersey, and March 6th at the Late Great Stashes in Columbus, Ohio. These performances feature some exclusive tracks not heard anywhere else officially, like the band's cover of Listen to the Music by the Doobie Brothers, Seconds from Big Timmy Wasserman, Gladiola Heartbreak from Wad Excerpts, and Shalom Absalom. For many, this is the greatest era of Ween's live performances because it's Ween at their weeniest, brown, sloppy, and lo-fi. According to Diener in the liner notes for Cat's Cradle, every night we had to face the crowd pretty much naked. There was nowhere to hide, no room for an off night. We did a lot of talking to the crowd and one another between songs. We pretty much had to. We faced a lot of hostile audiences when we were the opening act on a show. There was a lot to hate about us, but we won over a lot of people in the process because of our sheer nerve. A lot of our closest friends feel that Ween Live pretty much ended when we switched to a traditional band format with a bass player and a drummer. Once we got started releasing records and touring more as a duo, we got a lot better at it. We stopped caring about what the audience thought of us and just focused on having fun on stage. This was when we maximized our brownness.
Hey, Mickey! Yeah, dude. Put your headgear on. I can't see anything.
Speaking of brown, Ween's next live album came on November 16th, 2016, in the form of GodWeenSatan Live. It seemed to be a growing trend that as Ween's studio albums got glossier and more accessible, their live albums got browner, and nowhere is that more apparent than GodWeenSatan Live, a full performance of the band's debut album in honor of its 11th anniversary, which was billed as its 25th anniversary. The performance was sourced from a show at John and Peter's in their hometown of New Hope, Pennsylvania, that took place on September 14th, 2001. Yeah. Just 3 days after 9/11 and only 72 miles away. Absolutely wild timing. But as crazy as it sounds, this performance of Ween's silliest, most immature album seems to bring the crowd together in this most uncertain time, with the closer, Puffy Cloud, feeling like a warm hug at the end of the noise rock gauntlet. On the liner notes, Dean writes, "There was a sense of raw emotion the night of the show. It had been only a few days since the towers had fallen, and everyone in the world had been glued to their TVs. As we walked onto the stage, the crowd was in a daze, but we came to play that night and needed to deliver in a big way. It was very cathartic, on both sides of the stage, for both the band and the audience. Remarkably, that night, we were able to conjure up the spirit we had when we originally wrote those songs, some dating back to 1985. I have never heard Jenner sing as hard as you did that night. He was screaming just like he did when we cut the record. I broke out my old 1958 Fender Music Master, the same one I had played on GodWeenSatan. 9/14/01 was a very special night for Ween, a time way before it was trendy for bands to perform an album live in its entirety. It seemed like a good idea at the time, and now, we're pretty sure it was. As of August 2025, GodWeenSatan Live is Ween's last live album, and their last release in general, other than the deluxe version of Chocolate and Cheese. For many, these 7 albums present Ween in their truest form, live and unfiltered, sloppy but ferocious, and ultimately serve to remind people of what they had before the great Ween drought of 2024. Maybe someday we'll get a new Ween live album, consisting of recordings from the nearly 2 decades of shows they embarked on since 2003. But more importantly, maybe one day, one glorious day, we'll see Ween hit the stage, in the flesh, once again.
Hi, we're Ween.
Okay, this first song that we're gonna do tonight, totally spontaneous decision. Nice loose jam by Ween.